are delighted to be here this evening on a very important event, and we are the Indigo Big Band and the Swingdals. We'll be entertaining you for the next period of time, so sit back, stay warm, and enjoy the music.
No one to walk me
Thank you very much. We heard some of you sing along there, so please keep going. The next one's called Tuxedo Junction. Before we go on, I just want to acknowledge that was a trumpet solo from Jim there, so let's give Jim a round of applause in the back there. He's very shy. Oh, and Mark, and another round of applause for Mark. He's his understudy. Mark always comes in at the wrong time.
Hard to get this stuff.
So now you're going to listen to a string of pearls. So we've got from Ellen, Richard and Jim this time. So we're going to keep moving on. The next song is dedicated for all you ladies out there. And any of you wearing diamonds this evening? Some of them are flickering away here. This is diamonds are a girl's best friend. So it's a hint for all the gentlemen out there that can get busy tomorrow. actually my favourite one of the evening. This is Chattanooga Choo Choo. So I'm sure you all know this. And some of the ladies up there were doing a bit of dancing. So you could probably do a wee bit of that old train track signalling, you know, with the hands. I think our band would love a wee bit of dancing. So it'd be lovely to see up there dancing. Yeah, perfect. Fantastic dancing up there, we spotted you. Amazing. So we're going to do a National Clothes song, and this is straight from Fly Right.
Downing Street. This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note, stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Glentoran Football Club, in conjunction with the Glentoran Community Trust, welcome you to the Oval Grounds tonight for this commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the night terror and destruction rained from the skies above us on our city. On the 5th of May 1941, the Oval Grounds, home to our proud football club since 1892, lay in ruins. The very existence of our club hung in the balance, and yet, despite Bill Shankly's later tongue-in-cheek assertion that football was more important than life or death, here in Belfast we had the evidence that this did not hold true. The loss of life, the families torn apart, the devastation in the streets around us put our plight into context. Yet Glentoran were, and are, more than a football club. We were a symbol of the pride East Belfast had and has in itself. What the Luftwaffe had laid waste to, the men and women of East Belfast would stoop down, and brick by brick, yard by yard, they would rebuild from the ashes. Our whole community came together, and despite seemingly insurmountable odds, they, with a sense of pride and duty to their forefathers, breathed life back into our club. A club that today still proudly stands as the last remaining icon of East Belfast. We're delighted to welcome our friends from Distillery and Crusaders football clubs tonight, the former aiding us in our long exile by allowing us to play at the old Grosvenor Park, the latter lending us a playing script for our first few games after we had lost absolutely everything. Glentoran do not forget their friends and the debt of gratitude owed to them. But in this ground 75 years ago to this very evening, and as darkness fell over the roofs, chimneys and shipyard gantries, for the citizens of Belfast, life changed forever. We are indeed blessed to have had the stories of those fateful nights when the bombers came handed down to us from generation to generation. For the next 15 minutes we intend to revisit the story of Belfast Blitz through that greatest of human faculties, your imagination. As you sit in the stands or join us in the terraces, you'll no doubt be taken by the views from the ground of a vibrant, forward-looking Belfast city centre. The icons of the heavy shipbuilding industry, Samson and Goliath, the aircraft assembly plant of Bombardier, formerly of course Short Brothers in Harlem to the northeast, the places of worship along the Newton Arch Road, and the thousands of houses spiral away outward from the River Lagan. These were all aspects, even 75 years ago, of life and industry in our city and a country at war. And it was these which drew our city, our community, to the attention of the Nazi war machine. So we ask you for the next short period of time to cast your thoughts back to a fine spring Sunday in early May 1941. The heat of the day having driven many families to the coast, the thought of a return to Belfast for the German Luftwaffe having begun to dissipate with every passing day. And as the evening sun began to slip gently behind Cave Hill, and the city prepared for another working week, on the aprons of runways all across northern France, German air crews were firing their engines into life. So imagine, reflect, and listen as through this narration by the Northern Irish actress Amanda Burton, we recount the story of the Belfast Blitz.
In September 1940, Hitler commanded his air force, the Luftwaffe, to wreak death and destruction on Britain. A series of terrifying night raids left thousands of civilians dead and cities across the nation in ruins. But while the rest of the UK prepared for German attacks, the citizens of Belfast, governed by a complacent administration at Stormont, believed they were beyond the Nazis' reach.
Belfast is the least well-protected major border city in the United Kingdom.
We thought we were away from it all because we thought the Germans couldn't fly their planes as far.
But in spring 1941, the Luftwaffe were preparing for a major aerial attack. Their target? Belfast.
As the German planes come over and went down into Belfast, and Belfast was just flattened.
And the impact on the unprepared citizens living there was catastrophic.
What stands out, I think, tragically about the nature of the growth of Belfast is more people in Belfast were killed on a single night than anywhere else except London.
Over the course of 3 hellish raids, Belfast faced an onslaught which would strike at the very heart of the city, changing it and the lives of those who lived in Belfast forever. Belfast in the 1930s was a small city with a population of just under 500,000. Ruled by its own government at Stormont, it was a port city, a lifeline between Britain and the US. Its docks were of great strategic importance to both nations. The city was also a major industrial centre. A network of factories and engineering works dominated the port. Harland and Wolff shipbuilders, Short and Harland aircraft factory, Rank flour mill, Mackey's foundry, York Street mill, and the Kew Diggs timber yards. And the workers lived just outside the factory doors, in narrow streets of poorly constructed houses. In September 1939, this peaceful existence was threatened by the outbreak of war.
I am speaking to you in the cabinet room at 10 Downing Street. It would have been quite possible to have arranged a peaceful and honourable settlement between Germany and Poland.
In London, preparations against enemy attack were immediate and vigorous. Barrage balloons protected the city, air raid shelters were erected, and thousands of men conscripted. But in 1939 Belfast, there were few visible signs on the city streets that war with Germany had been declared, or that local government thought Belfast was a target. Air raid sirens regularly rang out across the city as a warning that enemy aircraft could be near. But 22 false alarms before Belfast experienced an attack meant that the sound carried little fear, and life continued as normal. Air raid shelters were one way of protecting the general public, but Westminster had ordered Stormont to prioritise building airfields. So a year into the war, there were only 200 public shelters in Belfast to hold a population of 500,000. Belfast was also poorly defended in comparison to the rest of the UK. While Liverpool secured over 100 heavy anti-aircraft guns to shield it, Belfast was granted 16, with no searchlights to illuminate enemy aircraft. Then, in June 1940, the threat suddenly intensified. The German army marched into France and took control of air bases along the coast. Hitler sent squadrons of Luftwaffe to await his command for an attack on the UK, now only a short flight away. As London was still reeling from its first bombardment, the Luftwaffe were already planning more attacks, this time on industrial cities outside the capital. As secret files prepared by the Luftwaffe reveal, Belfast was one of them. By autumn 1940, unaware of just how vulnerable Northern Ireland had become, new Prime Minister J.M. Andrews made his support for the war against Germany clear and unequivocal.
From Northern Ireland, the Right Honourable J.M. Andrews, who gives a profound message to all.
Ulster is the key to the defence of Ireland. To make it neutral would mean handing over that key to Hitler.
By early 1941, all of Belfast's heavy industries were playing a vital and active role in the Allied war machine. Harland and Wolff were building minesweepers, aircraft carriers, and destroyers. Short and Harland were turning out Sterling bombers and Sunderland flying boats. But despite the activity in their factories and daily news on bombing elsewhere in the UK, the war still seemed far away for the people of Belfast. However, the Germans gave a stark indication that Belfast was within reach in January 1941, when the Luftwaffe dropped bombs on neutral Dublin.
Houses at back downtown Dublin fall victims to Hitler's bombs. 7 people were trapped when the Nazi raiders deliberately unloaded their bombs on these houses in air.
The Irish government interpreted this attack as a warning to stay neutral. Ministers in Stormont, however, saw the bombing of Dublin as a reason to finally go on red alert. In early April, as a full moon illuminated the city, the Luftwaffe prepared to attack Belfast for the first time.
There were over 500 Luftwaffe long-range bombers set up from France, and the main focus of attack was Glentoran and Greenock, where about 300 bombers attacked. 8 came to Belfast.
These 8 bombers were on an exploratory raid to test the city's defences. Their target was the dock area. The following day, 10-year-old Kathleen Regan witnessed the devastating aftermath of the raid in streets close by.
I was living in Spannard Street, number 50, which isn't there anymore. There were at least 3 bombs I can remember, and they were down near the bottom of Fort William, and we went down the next day to see the damage that the bomb could do. And the bomb had exploded in the garden near the front of the house, and the whole of the front of the house was exposed. Bed half out, the bed clothing hanging down. The whole place was destroyed. When I saw that, I realised planes could get as far as Belfast. And I was frightened, very, very frightened.
Luftwaffe pilots recorded that the city's defences were weak and scanty. The ease with which they carried out this first raid encouraged German command to begin planning another mission. On Easter Monday in 1941, the people of Belfast were celebrating the holiday on day trips to the country and seaside. 23-year-old Rita Wade spent the day with her mother. plane spotted by Rita's mother was the prelude to an armada of bombers who were preparing for takeoff. Their destination once again, Belfast. With only a week between raids, the authorities had little time to increase the city's defences. They received just one extra searchlight, one anti-aircraft gun, and a smokescreen from England. These did little to protect Belfast and her people against what happened next. Many families were too scared to stay in their own homes. Belfast is a city surrounded by hills. A stream of people headed for the slopes of Divis, Black Mountain, and Cave Hill, hoping to escape the bombs. There followed wave after wave of German planes, heavily laden with deadly explosives, which floated down on parachutes across the city. Belfast's industries were the Luftwaffe's primary target, but it was the surrounding residential areas which suffered most.
The bombs came, and you could hear them whistling as they come down, and then they stopped. And a train stopped, explosion came. And if the explosion came, you had no chance.
There was mayhem throughout Belfast as the bombs continued to fall. The 17 anti-aircraft guns stationed in open ground across the city were no match for the Luftwaffe bombers. By 1:45 a.m., the Luftwaffe had complete command of the skies over Belfast. Their deadly cargo turned parts of the city into an inferno, which overwhelmed the local fire services. As dawn broke on the morning of Easter Tuesday, the people of Belfast were in a profound state of shock. The raid had left carnage in its wake. Entire streets had been wiped out, and the number of dead would rise steadily to nearly 1,000. Ten-year-old Sonny Clark lived with his family close to the shipyard.
I lived in 15 Donegal Street, off Remembrance Street, and at that time I lived with my father and mother and two brothers.
After his mother died in 1940, Sonny was one of the few Belfast children evacuated to the countryside. His father, a dock worker, stayed behind in the city. On a clear moonlit night in May 1941, squadrons of Luftwaffe bombers left their bases in northern France. From the safety of the countryside, Sonny watched as they descended on Belfast.
We were through the female outside this one on the White Mountain. Once we heard the loud bangs, we all got out of bed and went out. No put on us and went out, and we were able to stand outside and watch the flames coming in. It was one of the brightest nights you ever seen in your life. You had thought somebody lit the whole city up for the planes to see what they were doing. It was such a great summer's night.
We were getting ready to go to bed, and my mother, she said suddenly, "Oh, Eddie, Eddie," that was my dad, "we've got to get out." We dressed and went down to the shelter. The Catholics that were in the shelter spent the night saying the rosary, and the non-Catholics sang war songs and the top of the pops in those days. But then, as the bombing intensified, they joined in the rosary too.
On their third raid, The Luftwaffe's main targets were the docks, but so relentless was the attack that the city was soon a sea of flames. Unlike the previous raids, Belfast city centre now experienced the full brunt of a Luftwaffe attack. High explosives and incendiaries dropped on Belfast's oldest and most historic streets. The following morning, Belfast awoke to the loss of another 200 of her people, and a city changed beyond all recognition. Northern Ireland's industries continued to play a major part in the war effort. So much so that a victorious Churchill wrote to Stormont in 1945 declaring, "But for the loyalty of Northern Ireland, we should have been confronted with slavery and death, and the light which now shines so strongly throughout the world would have been quenched." But the price paid by the people of Belfast and Northern Ireland was a heavy one. The impact still lingers within those who experienced the Belfast Blitz.
As night fell in the east of the city, as families took cover once again in poorly constructed shelters in the ditches and hedgerows high above Belfast in the Castlereagh Hills, area wardens and police officers patrolled the streets. Thorndyke Street, Westbourne Street, Witham Street, Backmount Street, Ravenscroft Avenue. The spring moon bathed Belfast in shimmering silver. Light was the friend of the German airmen. In a pillbox high on the hill at the Sydenham end of this very stadium, a small detachment of soldiers from the 7th Battalion of the Gloucestershire Regiment scoured the skies from the only high ground in inner East Belfast. If you look hard enough tonight, you can still see them there. Little did they know that hundreds of miles away, on the runways of northern France, hundreds of bombers were on their way. Close your eyes, let your mind take you back to a time when every night in this city was filled with fear and dread for both family and friend, for life and soul. Lights out, they're coming. We have come to that part of the evening, the going down of the sun, and we as a club would like to invite David Thompson, the chaplain of Glentoran Football Club, to lead us in a short service of remembrance for all of those who died during the Blitz on Belfast 1941. We're indeed honoured to have with us this evening representatives of the emergency services from both north and south of the border, local community groups, a detachment from our local Army Reserve, and our friends indeed, the clubs who helped Glentoran through the hardest of times. With the Belfast Fire Brigade stretched beyond human comprehension in those darkest of hours, the war room at Stormont appealed for help. While hundreds of firemen from both Glasgow and Liverpool were dispatched, they simply could not reach Belfast until much later in the day. Dublin's assistance was required urgently. Immediately upon the Ministry of Public Security requesting the assistance of the Dublin Fire Brigade, men from the south would make the journey to the blitzed city of Belfast. From Dublin alone, 3 regular, 3 auxiliary engines would be sent. Dunleary, Drogheda and Dundalk each contributed an engine to the cross-border effort. The Dublin Fire Brigade would make 2 cross-border journeys, the first on April the 16th and again on May 5th. The first engine on the road to Belfast came from the Dorset Street station, which was under Station Officer Edward Blake and 3rd Officer Richard Gorman. The Dublin Fire Brigade had first been contacted at 5:10 a.m. by the Ministry of Public Security, and by 7:30 a.m. 3 pumps with crews had already left the city. The engines were greeted by customs officers on the border who waved them onwards. The men were warmly welcomed to Belfast, with the Irish Independent of April 18th noting that the fire brigades which attended from Era have been greatly praised for their work, and as they passed through the city's streets homeward bound after their errand of mercy, they were heartily cheered by a grateful people. The first men from the Dublin Fire Brigade had arrived in the city just before 10 a.m, and the first engines departed the city at nightfall. Fire crews from Dublin, Dundalk and Drogheda would return to Belfast on May 5th, with even more men making the journey across the border. This time, 6 pumps and an. This assistance was not forgotten by the Belfast Fire Brigade, and when bombs rained down on Dublin itself in late May, it was reported by the Irish Independent that the Belfast Fire Brigade approached Dublin to offer assistance if required. On behalf of Glentoran Football Club, the people of this locality and the citizens of Belfast, we welcome back to East Belfast this evening representatives of County Dublin and County Louth Fire Brigades, alongside their counterparts from the Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service, whose dedication and bravery will never be forgotten. The list of dead from the raids of 1941 held at the Northern Ireland War Memorial includes several members of the Royal Ulster Constabulary killed whilst on duty. One such officer, James Thompson, aged 36, lost his life whilst on duty in Dunraven Avenue on the 5th of May. We're delighted to have representatives of the Royal Ulster Constabulary George Cross Association here to lay a wreath tonight. We also extend a warm welcome to the police officers laying a wreath on behalf of our local police service for Northern Ireland stationed at Strandtown. In addition, the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service are present, remembering fallen medical colleagues such as Harvey Thomas, an ambulance stretcher bearer, aged only 19, who died from injuries sustained in Percy Street. Hundreds of members of the armed services were on duty that evening of the 4th of May 1941 in Belfast, many posted high up in the hills that surround our city, Lisnabreedy, Cave Hill, Divis, Black Mountain, and also here on the high ground at the Oval. Standing with us this evening and representing our armed services are soldiers from the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Irish Regiment, from our local East Belfast detachment, Clonavon. Glentoran Football Club would also like to ask Mr Ian Kerr and Mr Thomas McKee, lifelong supporters of our club, whose immediate families were touched by the spectre of evil during the Blitz, to lay a wreath in remembrance on behalf of our club. William James Mays was 16. He lived in Lichfield Street. Even at such a young age, he had volunteered to serve as an ARP messenger in the east of the city. He died protecting others that fateful night in May. We're honoured to have Glentoran Director Ian Kerr and his mother Margaretta Gardner Kerr here tonight to pay tribute to Ian's uncle and Margaretta's older brother. They stand beside Thomas McKee and his relatives, David McClements, Hamilton McClements and Brian McInnoy. Thomas's immediate family suffered the most harrowing of losses as 4 members died when a German bomb exploded in Thorndyke Street. Without the assistance of our friends at Distillery and Crusaders football clubs, Glentoran in the summer of 1941 would have struggled to survive. We'd like to thank representatives from both teams for coming here this evening and laying a wreath on behalf of their clubs. In an act of remembrance and solidarity, we are also delighted to welcome staff and players from the Linfield Academy as they lay a wreath on behalf of future generations. Children from the Walkway Community Association are also here to pay their respects on behalf of the residents of East Belfast, representing a huge loss of life in the area around Ravenscroft Avenue, including, anecdotally, 12 Polish sailors whose ship was in Belfast awaiting repairs. I'd now like to invite David Thompson, Club Chaplain, to take the stage.
With the story of the Belfast Blitz still fresh in our minds, we gather in this same place of East Belfast, but in a very different time. We've been invited to imagine what it must have been like 75 years ago tonight, but we can only imagine the feelings of fear and panic and helplessness, the mixture of eerie silence and darkness, followed by thundering noise and blinding explosion, the ravages of destruction of people's homes, the devastation of a whole community, and the death of loved ones. We can only imagine. But we can also give thanks to God for his protecting and preserving hand. God was to this community what he says he will be to us in the Bible, our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. The Lord Almighty is with us, and the God of Jacob is our fortress. And so we give thanks to God. And we pause to reflect, to pay our respects to those who lost their lives, as we spend these next moments in silence. And so I invite you to stand together for the last post, and then 1 minute silence and the Reveille. You may be seated. We come now to the laying of wreaths by groups and individuals significantly involved in or affected by the events of the Belfast Blitz. The Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service. Representatives of the County Dublin and County Louth Fire Brigade. The Police Service of Northern Ireland. The Royal Ulster Constabulary George Cross Association. The Ambulance Service of Northern Ireland. The Royal Irish Regiment. On behalf of the community around Ravenscroft Avenue and the Polish community, the Walkway Community Association. Representing the members of the Glentoran family taken from us by the Belfast Blitz. Representing the community of East Belfast, the relatives of the fallen of Thorndyke Street. Representatives from Lisburn Distillery Football Club. Representatives from Crusaders Football Club. Representing Linfield Football Club, the players and staff of the Linfield Academy. We are here tonight to remember a community devastated by the Belfast Blitz, but also to draw inspiration from their resolve in rebuilding what had been lost. For the present day community of East Belfast faces its own set of challenges, having been more recently blitzed in a number of different ways by the end of the industrial giants of the shipyard and other significant employers, by 30 years of the Troubles and their aftermath, by community disintegration caused by housing redevelopment, by the financial challenges experienced by Glentoran Football Club. But we also give thanks for the green shoots of renewal and rebuilding in our community, represented by such initiatives as the Colmswater Greenway project and the redevelopment of new schools at boys and girls schools. Plans for a new stadium for Glentoran Football Club. And so in that spirit of remembrance and resolve, on this night when we look back and look forward, let's pray together. O God our Father, on this night when we come together to remember the impact of war, which always tears us apart, we give you thanks for the ways in which the light and love of who you are is reflected in the courage and care that surfaces in us at times of greatest darkness. We thank you for every act of love and self-sacrifice that left its mark on the life of this community on this night 75 years ago. For the help freely given to friend and neighbour and stranger. For service and bravery shown without counting the cost. For shelter and safety offered to those who had lost homes and loved ones. For words of comfort spoken and acts of kindness shown amid the chaos. Father God, may we learn again today something of what it is to live in real community with one another from the events of the past that we pause to reflect upon tonight. We give you thanks for the relative peace and security and prosperity we enjoy today compared to previous generations, which is ours because of their resolve to rise to the challenge of fighting for what is right, to rebuild what had been destroyed, to restore what had been lost, to reimagine a new and better day. Give us that same faith and hope and love, a fresh vision and energy and concern to live and work and persevere for a renewed community in this part of our city, in this our generation. And so, Heavenly Father, under this open sky, from which such devastation fell 75 years ago, we look back and remember. We look up and give thanks to you. We look forward for the dawning of another new day for East Belfast. hear our prayers, for we ask them in Jesus' name. Amen.
As huge swathes of Belfast lay in ruins, and both the aircraft factory and the shipyards burned, many people ventured out onto the streets in the wake of the all clear. The late Jim Gourley, one of the bastions of the 1923 Glentoran Supporters Committee, recounted, "I thought I'd take a walk down Mersey Street towards the Oval after the bombing had finished. A friend stopped me and asked where I was going. The Oval, says I. There's no point going to the Oval, he replied. The Oval's not there anymore." In Dr. Malcolm Brodie's first years as a sports journalist with the Belfast Telegraph, he also decided to visit the ground whilst Glentoran had relocated to Grosvenor Park in the west of the city. His report on what he found, read for us tonight by former Glentoran captain Mr. Paul Lehman, gives the most compelling of descriptions of a football club facing the steepest of struggles to drag itself away from the abyss.
There were no cheering crowds that morning, no star-spangled teams, no clicking of turnstiles, no programme sellers, no refreshment stands. A battle had to be fought, a battle far tougher than any on the field of play, a battle against the old enemy of Glentoran, flooding water from the Connswater River. Footballers had been replaced by swans as the children of the district navigated the lake, which had once been one of the finest playing surfaces on the island. 3 huge craters dissected the stadium, the water poured in. Daily the water was pumped away to be replaced by black treacle like mud, disused baths, buckets and even men's boots seeped through the mire. By the following morning the crater would be full again. To visit the Oval in the aftermath of the bombing was a strange experience. Your feet sank ankle deep in the mud, water lay in pools all around. The grotesquely twisted steel structure of the unreserved stand and the rusted track railings looked sadly out of place, emblems of another age. Everything was cathedral quiet, the silence only broken by the throb, throb, throb of the pump and the occasional rumble of a train passing on its way to Bangor.
Sammy Napier is 59 years old, a former player of some distinction. He played in the Glentoran side that won the Irish Cup against Linfield in 1914. That win led to an invitation to play for Glentoran in Austria, Hungary, Germany and Slovakia during the spring of that year. Glentoran arrived back in Belfast as winners of the Vienna Cup just a few months before the outbreak of the First World War. Oh, and he also worked on Titanic just over my shoulder here in the yard. It's Sunday, 21st of August 1949, the night after the Glentoran team has played its first game back at the Oval since May 1941. Sammy has a job as a night watchman at the ground nowadays. In the years that followed the end of the war, commodities such as steel are rare and are prone to disappearance. Sammy's job is to make sure the steel and building material around the stadium stay put. I'm sure he's around here somewhere.
Oh, there you are. So you thought you could hide up an unused stand? Did you? You think I come up a lagging at a bubble? I'm tortured with the wee buggers sneaking in through every wee nook and cranny this weather. Now that this place is nearly finished. But I'm telling you, nothing gets past Sammy Napier, the night watchman. Even before, when I played here back in the day, before the Great War, that's what they used to say. Nothing gets past Sammy Napier. Ha! The Great War. That was a gag. The war to end all wars, eh? That's what they said. One minute you're sitting on a sandbag in northern France, drinking a ration of brandy and celebrating the armistice. Next thing you know, they're back. 20 odd years later, burning around the roof of your house, dropping bombs 19 to the dozen. I tell you, as sure as I'm standing here, if I'd have known they were going to bomb the Vulcan bar, I'd have stayed on a wee while longer the first time. It's hard to take in now though, how bad it was the night the Germans came to Belfast. I packed our Mary and Samuel off to Dungannon, to the wife's uncle's house, after the first night's bombing. God love him. I'd never even been to Bangor before that, never mind the middle of nowhere. Mary was only 8. Here, she told us a great story about running into the farmhouse in Moygashel and asking her auntie for an empty soup tin because she was going to milk the goat. Her auntie says the tears were streaming down her face when she was telling Mary she better not bother because its name was Billy. But it was just as well they were away from the east all the same. I was out every night working in the aircraft factory. We couldn't have stayed in Chidolly Street. The wife took to the hills every night with some of the other women in our street. Some nights they even slipped under the hedges up the rocky road and walked back into the town in the morning. Our house was too near the yard and the aircraft and even the rope works for comfort. The rope works got flattened too, you know. It burned for 6 days solid. The story goes that the fire brigade came all the way from Dublin, from Dundalk and from Drogheda to help put out the fires. Here, I'm going to tell you this one. There's a great story about a big Free State fireman digging through the rubble at the rope works with his bare hands. People were buried underneath it, you see. So he's been digging for about an hour, and then he spies her wee Tilly Chamberlain from Skipton Street. She's upturned like a half-full ladybird, legs akimbo, bloomers on display for the whole world to see. I'd like a light. Remarkably, wee Tilly started to come round when we got to her. "Thank you, son," she says. "Oh, please," she's out. "Ah, you're more than welcome, a Coachla," replies the big fireman. "Jesus, you're not from Belfast," says Tilly. "No, dear, we're the Drogheda Fire Brigade," says he. "Drogheda!" Goes Tilly, "What the hell side was on friggin' bomb?" But here, for all the laughing, there was 100,000 tears. I seen sights the morning after the Blitz that I'd never seen at the Somme. In my own streets. And that's hard to get over. They were all gone. Swear to God, I didn't recognise parts of Newtonards Road, and the families that lived in them too, killed in their very coal holes. Jane and Martha Allister from Enid Parade, they died in the shelter in Witham Street. Jimmy Beattie, God love him, he was only 29. Him and his wee son James, he was only 3. Only 3. I'm not ashamed to say I cried like a child the day of their funerals. The two of them, father and son, killed in their house in Tamar Street on the 5th of May. Oh, and Mr. and Mrs. Brown in the same street. I can guarantee there's not one of you here tonight that didn't have somebody lost in the Blitz. I heard it all. I'll never forget the noise of those sirens till the day I die. They used to scream at us in the trenches, "Gas! Gas!" during the First War. The sound of the sirens in the Blitz used to bring it all back to me. And I'm not afraid to say, in the nights when the Germans came, I wanted my own mother to be there to look after me. I had this job, you see, a fire watcher in the aircraft factory. Just for a year or two, it was a penalty kick. Many's a night I drifted off in front of the brazier and come home to find the buggers had drawn a big black tar moustache on a bake when I was sleeping. They used to say that when the first Sterling built in Belfast took its test flight, they took it up over the city, opened the bomb doors and the night shift fell out. It was all a queer gag until the night they did come, 200 of them. We were trapped in the paint shop. The squeal of the bombs and the whistling noise before they exploded would turn your stomach. HMS Illustrious, she was moored in the lock and the 2 or 3 anti-aircraft guns on her opened up on them. But it was a waste of time. And when When I was over, I walked home through streets I didn't recognise. Coming over the Mersey Street Bridge, I could see this place. Just a smouldering mass of rubble. It was only a football ground, sure. But it was my football ground. All my best memories. Playing here, scoring here, beating the Blues here. But it was all gone. Thing is, though, they were messing with the wrong ones. Within a month, Toby Mercer, rare-looking wee man, but the chairman nonetheless, he decided that the Glens would play on. So we moved to Distilleries ground at Grosvenor Road. Crusaders lent us their spare rig and we were away. Back here, the supporter club raised nearly £20,000 to rebuild the Oval, and the government paid out from the war fund. So every night, when the weather was good for nearly 9 years, we'd all come down here and help out. See them big blocks around the outside of the ground? The supporters laid them by hand after work in the yard and the factories. The Oval was rebuilt. We did it. Your fathers and mothers did it. And they rebuilt this city and this community too. There's a wee poem that somebody wrote about Glentoran coming back to the Oval. If you have a wee minute, I'll just read it to you. Imagine Glentoran's Tommy Hughes and Linfield's Isaac McDowell leading their two teams back down that path onto the pitch after all that time. The poem goes like this. There were cheers from the crowded spectators whose hopes were not in vain. There were smiles from the pool speculators, the Glens at the Oval again. There were men who followed them to Derry, Portadown, Ballymena, Coleraine. It's no wonder they're all feeling merry, the Glens at the Oval again. As I stood in the grandstand thinking of days of long, long ago, shades of Scraggs, Fred Roberts, John Geary, and the Blues cried, slip it to Joe! May the green, red and black rise in glory. To their loyal supporters refrain. The Glens are here, so why worry? We're all back in the Oval again. Look, it's been great to talk to you. It gets lonely here some nights. But look, I'm away now. I'm away for a wee cup of tea and a dander along the railway line. But before I go, remember this. The bombs of 200 planes couldn't break this country's spirit. Never forget that. And never forget that those bombs didn't choose where they fell that spring. Catholic, Protestant, Jew, Muslim, their lives. And we'll never forget them. The long, and the short, and the tall. Bless them all. Look after yourselves, folks, and God bless you too. Bless them all.
A few photographs of Glentoran remain from the years just after the war. One iconic image does exist though, that of Glentoran's captain Tommy Hughes and Linfield's captain Isaac McDowell walking back down that path in August 1949 and out onto the Oval after 8 long years away. Tonight, as Sammy Napier asked you, imagine those two young lads making their way back onto the Oval pitch with renewed hope for a brighter future, a brand new dawn. If you try hard enough, you can envisage what that might look like. And so I'd ask you to join with me in welcoming the captains of both the Glentoran and the Linfield Academies as they recreate the long walk back home, back to the Oval, out of the darkness and into the light, and to take a pledge on behalf of future citizens, future players, and future supporters of this great city.
Those who left us grew not old, the flame still lights their eyes. Although their bodies lay to rest, their memory never dies. On hills above this city, their spirit lights the way. It roars through every house and street and the classrooms of the day. Over ocean streams and backyard dreams, and across the sunburnt plain, the harvest yields on sporting fields in rainbows after rain. It defines a life worth living and the day that must be won for every father's daughter and for every mother's son.
But more than that, the sacrifice, the dying to be free, the pride of Belfast City still burns in you and me. When the night is dark and dangerous, with the rumble of the storm, their courage calls the sunrise, and their spirit makes it warm. We will not forget their sacrifice, the strength of their endeavour, for the choices we are gifted with, that flame will burn forever. With a smile that lights the future, shining brightly in our scope, we will stand as one together, we will carry on with hope. But as we go, we take the words that rightfully belong. I am young and I am worthy, I am brave and I am strong. In the face of any challenge, I will strive to rise above. I deserve the opportunity to live, to learn, to love. I can truly make a difference, my path is up to me, and this is my commitment, be the best I can be.
We kicked the ball down Whitman Street, on cobbled stones through soldiers' feet. The war was on, but not round here, a time the Germans won't come near. We'd sent them packing years ago, on Flanders fields, through mud and snow. My dad came home, just like the rest, with shards of shrapnel in his chest. Then I was born in 34, 5 years before we went to war. My days were joyous, full of fun, while my old man still fought the Hun. At night when our wee house was still, he'd hide from shell fire, poker still, with tears that flowed on mangled sheets, and gas, 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 stuck on repeat. But when the smoke and cordite cleared, and daylight chased the hell he feared, we had football, him and me, a stone's throw down from 33. He took me with him to the games, and knew the songs and players' names. We were Glen men, so he said. Our blood had flowed green, black, and red. But something changed one night in May. 200 planes came round our way, and took our Thomas, naval food, young Sidney Bell from 42. The man who ran the corner shop, old Mrs. Benson, make them stop. Bombs exploded all around. They smashed our very football ground. I found my dad on Mel Street, his body wrapped with blood-stained sheets. He'd gone to help when word came round that Jamesy's children can't be found. He'd gone before in no man's land, held young McMaster by the hand. I found his medals in the drawer, one tear-stained night beyond the war. Through years that followed, life was hard. I served my time down in the yard. At night I'd walk on Whitman Street, down to the Oval, lads of me. From joiner's bench and paint shop floor, they built it back beyond the walls. The crowds returned with smiling face. I came back too, with empty space. So don't forget him, my old man, and come back down here when you can. But not for football, Jesus no. Good times come and good times go. Just come and stand here when it's still. Think of them all on Sydenham Hill.
In the spirit of hope and regeneration, we'd like to end this evening's commemoration in a mood of optimism. Optimism for the future of this club, the future of this rich, this vibrant, this diverse community, and the future of this great country. And to put you in the mood, we'd like to welcome back onto the stage the Swing Gals and the Indigo Big Band.
on.